Well, good evening to you folks. How are you? It's good to see you, and it's good to be seen by you. Welcome, welcome, one and all, to the show. I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live, loud and clear on a Thursday evening. And I hope you guys are doing absolutely wonderfully out there in TV land. We have got a live stream for you tonight. We're going to talk a lot about GUOGC, and as I'm sure you saw from the thumbnail, we've got a guest. We've got a guy coming on the show here in just a few minutes who's a swell guy, a cool guy. I met him a couple of ticks back, and he is just an all-right kind of fellow Dungeons & Dragons developer, a guy who knows his way around the hobby a good bit. So he's going to be joining us here in just a minute. Oh dear. I think there's a cat trapped in the studio with me, so you guys may have to wait for just a moment while I let the kitty out. But before I do that, before we pay proper obeisance to the feline gods, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon for notifications about this and all of our upcoming content here on the YouTube channel. Because, folks, I am being blackballed by YouTube. That is happening to me. It's happening to dozens of small creators out there. They are putting us on a grind set that is kind of difficult for the small YouTube creator to survive, and it's really tough. And the best thing you can do, whether it's me, whether it's Dungeon Minister, whether it's Great Old Ones over on his channel, whether it's D and Disability, whether it's Doom Swords, anybody, please click the subscribe button. Make sure you have that like solid white bell icon clicked, and that will help greatly. Let's see. So we've had a pretty good week so far. Thank you for listening to me moan and groan last week. I do want to mention, because there was a little bit of concern out there in the audience about Zeus, because he said, "Oh my God, Zeus," and I gotta jump up. He's an old man. He's 14 years old, and when it's time for him to go out, he has to go out. And if you don't catch that, there's a problem. And it was just Mrs. the Dungeon Delver running back in the office space where I've got utilities and stuff over there to grab some towels, and we'll leave it at that. But no, I mean, health wise, he's as good as he can be. And thank you everyone who reached out to me and said, "Oh, is everything okay?" Yes, everything is okay. So last night's drama and weird scene aside, we're going to have a good show tonight. Steven's going to be out here in just a minute, and we're going to hang, basically. That's right. We have found someone guilty, and they're going to hang. No, Steven and I are going to hang out tonight, and we're going to talk Dungeons and Dragons. He's going to tell us a little bit about him and the stuff that he's worked on. And yes, there's the warning alarm. I got to go. Hang on a second, guys. I'm so sorry. This is the level of professional that you get from this show. Hang on. My producer wants out. Yes, you may go. She used to demand to be let in here, and now it's like she can't stand being in here when I'm doing a show. I don't get it. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna talk to Steven. He is actually going to be at the GUOGC. I know he's going to be doing a panel at the GUOGC. I'm spoiling his talk when he comes on a little bit, but pursuant to that, tonight I'm going to show, maybe for some of you folks who are watching, that if you're not aware of what the GUOGC is, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, how to register for it, how to become a DM, how to set your games up, and all that sort of stuff. We're going to be doing that live tonight. I'm going to be showing Steven, so it's going to be a lot of fun. David Montgomery says, "Cats are evil." I would direct you to the illustration of Bast in the Deities and Demigods book as rendered by Jeff D. and ask you to reconsider your position on that. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to bring Steven out here, and we're gonna have a talk. We're going to get caught up. So everybody, please put your hands together for this fellow who is coming straight out of the deserts of NorCal. Everybody, say hello to Steven Radney McFarland. Steven, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I can't complain. I could. Who would listen?
Sometimes you still do.
Sometimes I still do. Absolutely. So it's good to see you. How have you been?
Busy. Good. Took a move not quite a year ago down to Southern California in the Great Desert.
Yes.
Just outside of Joshua Tree. So my office now has a lot more light. My office in Washington was in a basement with no windows. Now I have these great big windows, and when it's nice outside, I open up the windows and let the air come in. It's very pleasant.
Excellent. That's wonderful, man. And I'm in a garage essentially. I have like a 1x1 square. I think guys in Supermax get more sunlight in their quarters than I get in here. So I feel you. I definitely understand that. So I gotta ask you this straight away, and I'm gonna zoom in on you for a second here, because you have some minis going on over the right shoulder, yeah?
Yeah. So I'm sitting at my work desk. This is where the magic happens. And then usually in the evenings, I'll turn it around, and that's my painting desk behind me.
Okay.
Right now, It's got a whole bunch of Saracens that I'm putting together and painting.
Nice. So you do historicals.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. Like that's my jam when I want to play games where I don't worry so much about like the design and trying to figure out how things go. I like all sorts of games, but we had this really fantastic miniatures group up in the Seattle area called Pike and Shots, which I miss those guys, like Zeb Cook, Chris Pramus, and
nice.
And everybody in that group was and still is. I'm still a member. I'm hoping to make it up. They have once a year they have this kind of special convention. Some of the guys there, including Tom Warnerstrand, the Magic the Gathering artist from the early sets and a longtime Wizard of the Coast guy, has some land on Vashon Island. You can only get there by getting on a ferry, and he's got a huge backyard, and we camp in his backyard and play all sorts of games in his gaming shed, which is very nice. And I'm, so I like my favorite of the current miniature games is Saga, which has various iterations. You can do ancients or fantasy, or they just came out with the 100-Year War, which also has
to clarify, when you say Saga, you're not talking about the TSR mini game from the 80s, correct?
Okay. It's a French company, Studio Tom, and it's this amazing miniatures game, which does very interesting things with rules, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to play. It started as a Viking Age, which I think is why it got called Saga, but now it's got tons of ages that you can play. And then my current thing, which luckily has some solo rules, so I can play that solo, is Graham Davies' Guards of Traitors' Toll, which is not a historical, it's more a fantasy. You play groups of guards solving crimes in a fantasy city. It's kind of cooperative, kind of not. It's got some really kind of fun and interesting mechanics. You draw cards to figure out who amongst all of the commoners is committing crimes, and then you try to arrest them without pissing off the townspeople.
So it's a
crap, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's a bit like Clue then.
Sort of with miniatures. Yeah, like
Miniatures Clue. Okay.
miniatures Clue.
So speaking of historical miniatures, this is something that blew my mind when I found this out. And you may already know this, so if you do, your mind is safe from being blown. But so I was talking to a friend of mine who for many years worked in film, and he had approached Vin Diesel, because Vin Diesel, big, D&D nerd. Everybody talks about Vin Diesel. And they sat down, and this associate of mine, I'm not going to dox him, but he, of course, they talked about D&D, and what he had approached him about was doing a Car Wars film. And this was just after that remake of Death Race 2000 came out,
right.
And just before the Fast and the Furious series started.
Yeah.
So basically, doing a car battle racing movie was considered box office poison. So they're sitting and talking about war games, and my friend was talking about, like, hey, what would you say about getting together and optioning Car Wars for a possible film adaptation, and so on. And according to him, Vin was very receptive to the idea, but he said, you know what, everybody harangues me about playing D&D these days, and I thank you very much for not, because really, I just, my thing is historicals. I have like a 5,000 figure Hittite army that I never get to game with. So Vin Diesel, ancient historicals, those are two you just don't mentally put those together. But yeah, apparently the guy's big into historicals.
So, some of the best, we had in the Pacific Northwest, there's a convention called Enfilade. And it's all historical miniatures, and it's really kind of funny because it's usually in Tacoma. It used to be in Olympia, so you get a lot of people from the Joint McCord base, a lot of soldiers, and then a lot of ex-soldiers and everything else. And so it's really funny because anytime that I go to the show and I'll sit down at a table and I'll pick something really obscure, like an old 60s or 70s rule set where they're doing naval battles in the Great Lakes during the American Revolution.
Right. And
I'm just like, and I sit there and I get there, and it's all these, guys with short hair and everything else. And I come sit down, and as I told one friend, I said, I immediately get treated like the girl at the table, that whole, oh, this person doesn't know anything. And they'll sit there and explain things to me like I'm 5 years old, which I just go, okay, and just follow our lead, right? But the entire time I'm reading the rule system and I'm looking at the charts and I'm seeing the progressions and everything on the charts, and I'm already scoping out what I'm going to do. So as soon as I do something that, the guy who's told me just follow my lead, he goes, what are you doing? And then he sees what I do and he goes, holy shit, that's smart. And I'm like, yeah, I design games for a living. I can figure out the exploits of these things pretty quickly. And I knew that.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, I've been in the military forever. I'm like, yeah, but this is a game, right? I'd be shit on the battle, right? But these things I know. But some of the best newer game design, probably in the last 10 years, has been, strangely enough, historical miniatures. I think in a lot of ways Studio Tomahawk leads the way on that, but Gray for Now has, they've got a samurai game called Test of Honor that's really great. Warlord Games, their World War II game Bolt Action is a hell of a lot of fun. So yeah, it's interesting because everybody thinks of historicals as, oh, let's get out the charts and read this clunky manual and whatnot. But actual modern historicals is very dynamic and a hell of a lot of fun.
So this is going way down a rabbit hole, but I was talking about this last night. Since we're talking about historicals, you know the great Avalon Hill publication, The General, right?
Yep.
Okay. So The General, this is another one of those mind blown things, and I'll send you a link to this later if you're interested in it, because there is a PDF of the copies of The General that this happened, that this was published in. The General, back in either the late 1960s, like 69, or early 1970s, definitely prior to 74, The General had, over the course of a few issues, the plans, instructions, and bill of materials for building a digital computer to use for tabletop wargaming.
Oh, neat.
Back in the 1960s, but basically it was a fire calculation computer for games that used firearms and ranging. You'd hit certain toggles and load resistances into an accumulator, and then when you hit the toggle to fire, it would move a needle on a potentiometer and point at the number you needed.
That's
so
cool.
Basically you just sit there and flip a few switches, and then bang, you'd know what number to roll instead of looking up all the different fire tables. And this was back in the 60s. That just blows my mind that they're like, yeah, here's how you can build a purpose, like a single purpose computer for for playing war games.
Well, I mean, you definitely have from, at least the mid 60s all the way into the 80s is this convergence of geek, of all sorts of forms of, things that if you try to explain it, it's kind of like back in the day when you might have played D&D or something similar for the first time, and you go home and try to explain it to your parents, and they're just like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. These subcultures of not only, science and technology and fantasy and science fiction and everything else, all of these things that, are a hell of a lot more mainstream today, but you just had these pockets of really dedicated people doing amazing stuff. I mean, in a lot of ways, you could say that TSR and the folks in Lake Geneva and the Twin Cities were exactly those sorts of people. Talk about a niche hobby at the time. Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like you say, it's an incredibly niche hobby. And I mean, it was, I go back to like, you look at stuff like, I was just talking about this earlier today to a friend of mine. I can see the books in my head, Tractics.
Right.
Tractics, great squad level. And what I love about Tractics is, you could go out and buy some Revell 172 tank models, couple bucks a piece, and then you've got the crews for soldiers, and for the princely sum of about $10 back then. Have a lot of fun playing a tank war game that you could clear the stuff off of the dining room table and play in short order. And I love that. And the cool thing about Tractics is it's still in print today. Mm-hmm. It actually the rights lapsed back to, my brain keeps wanting to say Dave McGarry, but it wasn't Dave McGarry who did Tractics. It was
I don't remember.
Yeah, but you can still get Tractics today, which I think is really, really cool. But anyway, the wargaming scene back then and what it brought forth. I mean, the white box for OD&D, and even the wood grain box that says rules for fantastic medieval war games, because role-playing game, what is that?
Yeah.
What is a role-playing game? That's that's crazy talk. That's jibber jabber. So it's been so fantastic to see the evolution, and you'll see that come back around. I think personally now, and so we can actually talk about the things that you do. This is a nice a point of convergence. Were you at Wizards of the Coast when they revived the Avalon Hill Impressum and started doing damn it, it's on the tip of my tongue, the World War II miniatures game that they did? They did like a collectible World War II miniatures.
The Axis and Allies stuff.
Thank you, Axis and Allies minis.
Yeah, I was working at Organized Play, and I was working with this other guy, Ian. I could tell you a really funny story about Axis and Allies miniatures.
Well, I want to hear it.
and Ian was from England, and he moved over to the United States basically to be my boss. And Ian was an interesting cat. Nice guy. One of those guys where, if you had a meeting with him, he'd bring cookies and all sorts of stuff. But he got really, like, when we were in Organized Play, which, is basically, my job was, if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons at a convention, I had something to do with that. I either helped organize writers to get it done or publish the material and stuff like that. This was all during the 3rd edition and 3.5 era.
Mm-hmm.
And but when the Axis and Allies miniatures game came out, Ian jumped on that. He's like, I'm going to handle this. And it's like, great, I don't have time. Absolutely go.
Okay.
So he ran the Organized Play for that. So one year I'm packing up for Gen Con. I have to go to the warehouse, talk to the warehouse guys about which one of our pallets are going to Gen Con, so we can run whatever events. And these guys at the warehouse, they're like, Steven, have you seen the Hitler boxes? And I go,
oh, no.
What are you talking about? And they show me. And so they did this promotional thing of a box where you could, throw your miniatures in. It's the same sort of shape and size as the card boxes that the Magic people. And it had Axis and Allies. And on one side, it had Roosevelt. And on the other side, it had Hitler. And I was all like, oh. And they were like, why are we putting images of Hitler on our marketing stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't handle that bit. That's a really, really good question. And I'm like, but it went through brand. It had to go through brand. Anytime we do marketing, it's got, we have meetings with brand. They have to approve it. So I don't know what to tell you. And of course, one of the guys that worked in the warehouse was Jewish and was very upset, and understandably so. And so at about that time, Ian comes in, and I'm like, hey, Ian, what's up with the Hitler boxes? And of course, the warehouse guys, they're all like, yeah, Ian, what's wrong with the Hitler boxes? And Ian goes, oh, you guys are so sensitive. How many people did the Americans killed far more people in the bombings of Japan and in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I just turned to him and pointed. I said, you need to shut up right now. Just zip it.
Not the time and place.
And he goes, why? And I'm like, And so when you're saying something controversial, and I'm telling you to zip it, it's got to be bad.
Yeah.
Right. It's, and yeah. So the next thing I know, we're in HR, we're talking about, all this kind of stuff. And I'm explaining to him, and I'm showing Ian on the very slow internet at the time. I'm like, look at the numbers. You're wrong. You need to go apologize to those guys. They're not taking it overly seriously or dramatic. You were, period, right? And of course, and everybody was like, yeah. And of course, the European office was all like, don't send those boxes here. We can't distribute them in large parts of Europe. You can't have an image of Hitler in Germany.
Right.
It's against the law. Which all of these things, for whatever reason, got past everybody, and they ended up destroying the boxes and not distributing them and whatnot. But I ended up, all of a sudden, I'm like, dude, you zinged us into a ton of meetings over nonsense, because like, why didn't you put Rommel and Patton? Like the Rommel stuff we might even have to change it for, for the European audience. I don't know exactly what the laws are, but why did you go with political leaders and not military leaders? It's a military game. And he's like, whoa.
Well, all I can think of, and I'm not defending the guy's decision. All I can think of is that he looked at the Milton Bradley box from like the early 1980s,
Maybe. Yeah,
and was just like, yeah, let's just do that.
Right.
Let's just do that.
So yeah, all of a sudden I got, thrown into HR over all sorts of funny stuff, and well, not funny, haha, but
yeah, it's.
And they're like, what do you think was going through his head? And I had to tell him, I'm like, Ian's a really nice guy, but he's not a thinker.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
There's your Axis and Allies story. I did not know. I was, that's far out. The happy Axis and Allies story. Axis and Allies was the one time my father and I ever played a tabletop game together that was not. My dad would. I bought him a starter set and a booster pack, and we sat down one day when he was at home. This is I don't know, maybe a year or so before he passed, and we played. And he took an SS Panther tank and a Tiger. And points wise, I had like a Lee and a Churchill, and I think maybe a Sherman and a Jeep. And yeah, he wiped the floor with me, which I'm not gonna lie, it was my dad. I kind of let it go, but yeah, I think he enjoyed it. But yeah, I dug the game a lot. I remember when they came out with the Axis and Allies navies, and you were talking about you were talking about meeting the grognards, actual grognards, and not just what people say about me because I like first edition, actual wargamers. When the Axis and Allies navies came out and they had the aircraft and stuff like that, the Sea Krieg. Have you heard of the Sea Krieg? Okay. Sea Krieg is basically a 1900s era dreadnoughts all the way up to 1950s era battle cruisers naval game. And it's you can go completely ahistoric, like how many Knox class frigates would it take to take down the Yamato, but just with deck guns? Just with 75 millimeter deck guns. You can do stuff like that, or you can play the Battle of Jutland, things like that. And the Sea Krieg Admiralty down here in Central Florida are very much not the, get away from my table, you sissy girl. Like, they want everybody to come in and play. Like if you stick your head in the Sea Krieg room, one of those old guys will say, "You want to play? We've got a spot open. Come play."
Oh yeah.
But they would go at the con, at the local historical miniatures con, and buy up all the Axis and Allies minis and planes booster packs, and right there at the table, strip them open and just just give the cards back to the vendors, and you can throw these away. We just want the minis. They just wanted the ship minis to play and plane minis to play Sea Krieg with.
No, I had some friends even, and so when I worked at Wizards, we get product points, and then once a week or so when Wizards first started, they put 2 copies of everything on your desk. Well, as Wizards got bigger and bigger and bigger, of course, they produced more and more products, and so you'd bury some people in their cubes. And so we got a very generous amount of product points that refunded or that filled up like every quarter. And so, unfortunately, I think back then I was spending most of my product points on the pre-painted D&D miniatures.
Mm.
You know, you get a box, and and I still have just a ton of them. From the early days of that line. Years later, I get an email from some friends like, "Did you ever get a whole bunch of those? The ships from Axis and Allies?" I'm like, "No, I never actually picked those up. I wasn't really working on that. I didn't even really get a chance to play it. I hear it was fun, but I hear everybody likes so many miniature gamers just want the ships.
Yeah.
That if I was smart, I would have picked up a cube of them, kept them in a closet and sold them for bank down the line. But people. It was a really good looking set. I used to do paint masters for various miniatures lines, although I avoided the Axis and Allies lines just because it's my problem with historical miniatures as well. I hate, like, I'm working on the Saracen cavalry, and it's going to take me forever because after a while I get so bored with painting horses. Just like, another damn horse, right? But yeah, I got another 5 for Victory, V for Victory. Studio Tomahawk did a really interesting, fascinating World War II game. And so 2 years ago, I painted a bunch of World War II stuff and got so bored by the end of it. It's like there's only so much camo you can paint.
Yeah. You start to see OD green in your sleep, and at that point, it's just like, I just want to paint some Harlequins. I just want to paint some miniatures, yellow and orange.
And so, I've got to split them up with some fun, crazy fantasy stuff, and then, go back to feed my historical miniatures. Or I have to get a set of miniatures that's like really nuts. So one of my Viking era armies is entirely female Vikings.
Okay.
Including a bunch of naked berserkers, which is
woohoo. Interesting.
Right. and these are sculpts from somewhere in Europe. They're really great sculpts and everything else. And I've even got a long ship that I haven't painted yet. But and it's it's kind of fun when they're like, "What are you playing?" "Oh, Vikings." "Oh, great. Is that all woman army?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, and either you'll get, every once in a while you get a grumpy person. "They didn't have that, Steve." And I'm like, "I don't care."
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I had a one of the guys in one of the local HMGS down here. They did a section of, I think it was the Battle of Alligator Creek from the Guadalcanal campaign. If you know, you know. And he had one of his Japanese soldiers that he painted up for that had a Japanese naval ensign and was wearing it like a cape. Like he painted the guy had like a poncho or something on it, and he painted it like a Japanese naval ensign. And when you're doing 75, 100, 200 miniatures for a historical battle, to take time to stop and just be like, I want this one to be unique. You have to appreciate the detail, and that's completely ahistorical. A guy wouldn't have done that, right? Right. Let me just carry this giant target on my body into battle. But it looks cool. You got to give over to the rule of cool sometimes, man.
Oh yeah.
So I have a question for you. I want to tell you a brief story about Wizards of the Coast and Seattle and historical war games, and I want to know if you heard this. It was Paul Stormberg actually told me this. I can't. Paul Stormberg. Anyway, no. Paul told me that There was a woman who reached out, just a cold call on the internet, over the internet, email, something, just reached out to him and said, I found this funny little book and it's got a lot of names and notes and stuff written in it. And there's a name written in it that says Gary Gygax. And I Googled and I found your information. Is this worth anything? And he was like, well, you're calling me from Washington State. This is a little odd. She had bought a set of filing cabinets that Wizards of the Coast had sold, just like off a surplus that they had brought from Lake Geneva.
Yep.
What this lady found in the back of a filing cabinet was Gary's, or one of his Guidon Games copies of Chainmail that he had written notes in.
Oh, funny.
This lady bought a filing cabinet, probably for the princely sum of maybe 40 or 50 bucks from WotC. And there's, there's a copy of Guidon Chainmail with Gary's handwriting in it. And Paul assessed it for her and was like, yeah, that's worth. And, of course it was eyes pop out of head moment when he told her what she might get for it on auction. I didn't know if you'd heard that story.
Not that story, but I can tell you that, so I joined Wizards in 2000, just on the advent of 3rd edition.
Okay.
In fact, I got hired 2 weeks before the Gen Con where the 3rd edition launched.
Okay.
So during that period of time, Wizards, the people from TSR that moved over to Wizards, of course, were there, and I met them. And some of them really liked living in Seattle. Some of them didn't. I remember Skip Williams really did not like Seattle. Mm. He's back in Wisconsin now, where he's a lot happier. And so, but of course, even at that period of time, years later, they were still going through storage containers, storage buildings of old TSR things. And so every once in a while, somebody from the brand team would be all like, oh, I'm going out to Lake Geneva. And it's like, why? And it's like, we've got to check out the storage unit that still has TSR stuff in it. And then they bring back treasures. And so I think like one of the guys, he posted something recently. Eric Mona shared something about, the old TSR beach towel. And he's like, oh yeah, I found one of those. I still have one of those because I found them in the shed.
Oh, nice. I had one when I was a kid. I had the green maze when I was a kid.
And so, not only TSR had a games library that got moved over to Wizards, but as Wizards went on, they did things like, either for points or just come pick it up. It's like, yeah, we're getting rid of the game library. And so, for instance, half of my Rollmaster books have scrawled in Sharpie TSR library. And they were the TSR library copies that of Rollmaster that were sitting in there that I picked up at some point, either on the free table or you can spend points and get stuff from, and a lot of people got, even crazier things from those. And like half of the Dwarven Forge I got was from that. It's like, yeah, we're gonna get rid of the Dwarven Forge. So if you want to just come down and pick it up. And so I have boxes of Dwarven Forge that have shipping labels to Milwaukee because they were the ones that they used at earlier Gen Cons or Indianapolis, or my writing RPGA on the side of it when, we'd order Dwarven Forge to run RPGA events. And eventually they're like, yeah, we're getting rid of this warehouse. Who wants this crap?
Yeah.
And so yeah. I go grab it. And then it'd be funny because a few years later, they'd be all like, oh, we need some more Dwarven Forge. We should order some. And it's all like, we used to have a bunch. You guys got rid of it. Right? For whatever reason. So, and I know there was something a few years ago where somebody went to not a pawn shop, but like a thrift store in in a town on the border of Canada, and they went in and they found framed in it for like $20 a picture of a pen and ink drawing of a woman grabbing an ogre by his nose ring, and she's threatening him with the sword.
I know the image. I know the exact one you're talking about.
Yeah, it was Jeff's original.
Yeah,
his original pen drawing of it. But the thrift shop, and who knows how it got there? Probably it was in the back of one of these things that Wizards just sold or got rid of. And somebody was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and I'll frame it, and then I'll get rid of it. I'll give it to a thrift shop, and it ends up being the original, Jeff Easley's original artwork.
Man, that is far out.
And Diesel will tell you crazy story. Like Diesel's got this amazing art collection that he will, he brings to shows and everything else, and he dug most of that out of the trash because TSR was throwing it out.
Yeah, I had Diesel on the show once, and it was it was probably about a 2.5 hour show, but it lasted 5 hours because he kept losing internet. God bless him. But he told me about so much of that stuff, and just how what was it? There's a Jim Rosoloff piece in Deities and Demigods, and it's Thor striking the world serpents as he, the piece. Everybody out there knows the piece. That drawing is about this big. It is a tiny drawing, and they blew it up for a whole page, which just that's pretty cool. But I mean, it's neat that he's got it.
A lot of it's really funny. I have a few pieces of original art over the years. But my girlfriend was I wrote the Pathfinder adventure for Queen and Empire, which was this adventure path that was set in Cheliax, and you got to play evil characters. And the background cover art is this wonderful, piece of, this druid on a griffin, and it's all foggy, and he's flying through this forest with sanding stones and everything else. And I got to design that encounter and everything else. And I own the original art, but you'd be amazed at how small a lot of these original art pieces actually are. I think everybody sort of imagines them to be this, sort of big framed thing. And a lot of them are actually about the size that they appear on the books.
Yeah. And
so the piece of art I have on my desktop and have had for about the last year is a Jeff Easley piece that was commissioned for the Melf book that we're doing. And that got sold at an auction at GaryCon to Vince Vaughn. So now Vince Vaughn owns the original piece of art of, this art I've been staring at for nearly a year. And everybody was like, they were commenting. I'm like, I thought it would be bigger. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably about the size of the book.
Up in I've got the Art and Arcana book over here, and I was fortunate enough to meet Tracy Lesh. He actually lived just up the highway from me for a little while. And Tracy and I would hang out, and he gave me some prints, not actual pieces, but he gave me some prints of some of the stuff that he had done way back and beyond, back in the OD&D days. And it's the same thing, I mean, granted, they were already going in small books, but yeah, the original Mind Flayer drawing fits on like a 5x7 card. It's not on a huge piece of paper that they photo processed down to fit. It's actually about the same size it is in the booklet. that he did. So yeah, the it breaks my heart that so much of the old art was lost, but I'm somewhat comforted by the fact that people have found the pieces and that it's made its way into the hands of people who actually care for it, you know, and it didn't just, not all of it wound up rotting as a thin layer of mush in a landfill somewhere in Wisconsin.
Yeah, the moral of the story is anytime you're in a thrift store or vintage store or whatever, and we've got quite a few up here, which eventually I'm going to take the kiddo and we're just going to go explore, is you could find some pretty amazing stuff. Like, you know, both my mom and my girlfriend, they tease me. They're like, you need to make a list of the things in your collection that are actually worth something. And I'm like, well, give it a long enough timeline, it's all worth something, right? I mean, but
yeah, I mean, on a long enough timeline, everything is a valuable antique.
But yeah, I've got weird, crazy things in my collection. Like I've got a nearly pristine. It's got a little bit of a stain on it. All the matches are there, but the little the matchbooks they used to give out at the mail order hobby shop at the Dungeon Hobby Store.
Oh, neat.
And it's got D&D on it. It's got the Lizard Man logo on it in green. And I got that once. I didn't have a copy of the Holmes basic set. And I wanted, you know, and Holmes's book on role playing is something that I read young and I go back to all the time. It's a great book where he does some amazing game design in there as well. And it also, when I was a kid, my first battle mat was a chalkboard because I tried to talk my parents into letting me put basically paint a table I had with chalkboard paint, because that's what he used as a play area for his game. And I saw that, and I'm like, that's a great idea. But so on eBay, I got a beat up, you know, box set copy. This was back before the prices were outrageous. I think I paid $25 for it.
Yeah.
It shows up, and I'm like looking forward to like reading through this book. And yeah, the matches were just in the box. And I went to my friends at Wizards who worked at TSR, and I'm like, how much do you think this is? And they're like, holy shit, where did you get that? Right? I haven't seen one of those for years. Because, of course, a lot of them were, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of them were smokers.
Right.
So if they got them, they used the matches. And they're like, this has all the matches, right? So I remember showing it to Kim Mohan, and I thought he was going to cry. He was like, wait, what? Oh, my God. And he's just like looking at it in his hand. I'm like, you're not going to cry, are you, Kim? And he goes, maybe.
Man, that's fantastic. You love to hear stories about finding treasures like that. Like, I got I've got a true first monster manual up there that it has the errata sheet that TSR sent out. It's, you know, just that it's like, oh crap, we didn't list hit dice for this, or, you know, this is wrong, or it's just like a full page of, but it's printed like a page from the book, but it's just a loose sheet of paper.
Right.
And apparently that thing's as rare as hen's teeth. You know, and it's just strange how stuff will fall in your hands. And I got that and a true first Dungeon Master's guide from a lady that ran a local bookstore. I was telling you about this last night, you know. She was just like, oh, I know you like the D&D books, Bill, here, you can have these. And I was like, and at this time, I'm like, Linda, these are worth about $150 a piece. It's very nice of you, but I can't take these. And she's like, oh, take them. What am I going to do with them? Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty amazing just in the last, you know, 20 years or so. What's funny is there was a period of time I quit Wizards of the Coast, and I was basically selling things on eBay for about a year and a half before I went back to work for Wizards of the Coast, partially because during my time in the RPGA, we made these things called campaign cards that you could, basically it opened up options for characters, and you could play some of them during the game. And I noticed pretty quickly, and the more you played, kind of, once a quarter, we would send you out X amount of cards based on how much you played. It was, and they were fun to design and put together. But I noticed none of them were on eBay, like the early days of eBay. There's a bunch of stuff on eBay. They weren't on eBay. So I sent like a stack of 5 or 6 to my brother. It's got a different last name than me and everything else. I'm like, Luke, just do me a favor. Put these on eBay. Keep whatever money you get, right? I just report to me how well or how terrible they did. He's like, yeah. And he did. And he's like, dude, I'm making a lot of money with these 5 cards. He made like, $600. And I'm like, so
that's
of course,
numbers.
I left Wizards. I had a bunch of these things. I think I still have a small box of these things. And so once a month, I put 5 or 6 of them online, pay my rent and my bills, play World of Warcraft, paint miniatures. And then the people, it was funny, is the people at Wizards, some of them would come to me and they're like, we hear you're selling stuff on eBay. Can I give you a bunch of stuff and you can take a commission? And I'm like, yep. So for a while, I was just an eBay seller for not only my own stuff, but other people's stuff. Excellent. And that's what I did for a job. And I was actually making more money than I was making at Wizards at the time. And then I got hired into R&D, which was a substantial pay raise from what I was making at the time. And my wife at the time, my ex-wife, she was all like, let me get this straight. You quit your job. You sat at home for about a year playing World of Warcraft, selling crap on eBay. And now they're hiring you back at twice as much as what you were making before. And I go, yep. And she's like, you live a charmed life. And I'm like, yeah, that may be the case.
Don't hate the player, hate the game, baby.
She was honestly upset. She thought there was entirely unfair thing just occurred. I'm like, you benefiting from it? Come on, I'll take you out to dinner.
There you go. I should be happy with it. So we were talking about cons earlier. We were talking about conventions, and I was telling the crowd out there. And if you come in late, because we had some lately, sir, 80 of you maniacs out there watching on both X and on YouTube. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button and click that bell icon for notifications. Make sure that's done. Otherwise, YouTube won't tell you jack. And also, if you haven't, give this video a thumbs up. That really helps too. Michael is late and a maniac. I see you there, Michael. But so as I was saying in the preamble ramble, that we have got the guac coming up. Stephen, would you like some guac? Would you care for some guac? Would you? Okay. So Stephen's going to be at the Great Underground Online Gaming Con, and we're gonna play it close to our chest. There will be a panel, and that's with there will be a panel, and the closer we get, maybe the more
stupid shit Steven says.
Stupid shit Steven says. The panel. And of course, that will cost what all the panels cost at GUOC, which is $0. It costs $0 to be at the con. It costs $0 to participate at the con. About the only thing you have to spend money on is any snacks and beer at your own house. And if you want to be in the auction, we are going to be auctioning a repro OD&D wood grain set and booklets. We're going to be auctioning that off. So keep your eyes and ears and wallets open if that's something that interests you. But Stephen will be paneling there, and I thought I'm
going to run at least one game, if not.
Yeah, and you're going to run a game. I thought it would be great since maybe some of you out there have been on the fence about coming to the GUOC. Maybe if you don't know how to, Or if you don't Discord that much. I don't know if that's a Jejun topic, but we'll let him decide. I never get compliments like that on my hair, mostly because I keep it back all the time. But anyway, so we could go over real quick for both Steven's benefit and for those of you in the audience who maybe don't have it down yet, how we do the GUOC. Now, the con is all on Discord. No place to travel to, nothing to worry about like that. All you gotta do is, let me see, I can't move that over. Okay. Just ignore the various Discord channels that I am a member of. But I will share that link right now to everyone. And if you come over to this Discord server, congratulations, you are registered for the con. Let's see. Oops, comments. That's the button I meant. Got to drop the ponytail sometime. What kind of a rocker am I? I'm the kind of rocker who used to have hair down to his waist, and now I just have a hairy back. All right, so you can check out the con, and now we're going to go over there, and I'm going to walk Steven and the rest of you guys through just getting around the convention space.
It's great. So, I still love Discord.
All right, so
although it's very great for running online cons for.
It is. It's not the best. If I'm being completely honest, I would like to do the scheduling through something like tabletop.events. This is not a complaint. I am not bitching about tabletop.events. I think it is a great system. GUOC is free. If tabletop.events does not let you do free events. I would have to charge for GUOC. Or I would have to pay a bunch of money up front and then hope that many people came, and then just give everybody a free pass to view the schedule and everything like that. So barring that, we're over here. So let me go ahead and add to stage. So when you come to the Discord, this is what you're going to see. There's a text channel, and there's all these voice channels. And of course, we have the events. And if you want to see who the members are, I don't really do the server boost thing. Don't worry about that. If you have Nitro or whatever it is, I don't get into that. You don't have to do it. So here, when you sign up, is the incredibly complex way to let's see. I forgot to expand the list there. To sign up for a game, go to convention events. Now, Steven, if you need to pause the video or record this or ask me to stop so you can write this down, just let me know.
I got my Discord open.
Okay.
So I'm going to do it as we're talking.
Click convention events.
Okay.
Scroll through the list of games until you find one that you like. Click the green checkbox, and you're done. That's it. That's how you register for a game.
Oh.
It is that difficult.
Labyrinth, Dungeon Crawl with OSC. Oh, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun stuff here.
Yes, there's a ton of fun stuff. I'm doing a Space Hulk demo on Thursday. That is 2 weeks away, by the way. GUOC is 2 weeks away. For those of you who are curious, I'm doing a dungeon demo right after Space Hulk, and we have other panels. I just have not slotted them yet.
Yep.
So that's it. That's how it's done.
All right. And so the games I want to run, so what I have to, how do I put in an event or?
Okay. So who are you on the server here? What is your server name?
What is my server name? SRM Delve RPG.
SRM. All right. SRM Delve RPG. Okay. This is the user intervention thing that I have to do. I go to roles and I set you as a game master.
Okay.
So you are now set as a game master. Now, this is the tricky part. This is the multi-step part that throws so many people. What you want to do, hit the slash and type create.
Okay.
Type in a title.
Okay.
You can give it, like, you know, if your event is the Haunted Bog, you could, and you want a little more info, you could do the Haunted Bog for Pathfinder 1E or the Haunted Bog for Original Dungeons, or just however you want to put that in there.
Got
and
it.
then under date time, you know, I'm going to steal that real quick. The Haunted Bog for basic D&D, and then under date time, you can use more or less any format you want for date time. You can type in 14 days and 10 hours. You can type, you know, Thursday, July, or don't type it in July. I won't be there. Thursday, April 9th, 5 p.m. Eastern. However you want to stamp that. And once that's done, your game is in the grid.
Okay. Let's see. Let's do.
Now, you yourself will get a DM that only you will see, just as a reminder from Discord or from the Sesh bot once you do that.
All right.
So I see your game in the grid, so I can come over to convention events, or I can go up into the events grid. Delve Goblin Stomp. And there you go. I'm not sure if my Saturday is open for that slot, so I can't click it yet. But guys, yeah, if you just come in, just click that. If you think you might want to go, but you're not sure, you can do that. If you just want to watch the game, and that's one thing for both audience members and for you, Stephen. If a game master doesn't mind you kibitzing in their game, that's fine, but please ask them about it. Don't just assume that you can sit in there. But regardless, mute your mic when you're in the room. Just be respectful of the time that the game master has taken, and keep your mic muted if you're just watching the game. And everything will be both hunky and dory. And if you need to come up and delete your game, you can just hit the gear and select, remove this, or I think you can, you can come up and change things as you need to. But that's it. That's how you register. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is, if you look over here on the left, there's voice channels. Mm-hmm. At the appropriate time, I will set a room to the name of your game. So we'll come in here, and I'm going to edit this channel, and we're going to call this Goblin Stomp. And there we go. And we're out of there. And now there's a room called Delve Goblin Stomp. You click on it, and you're in the voice channel. If you want to see the text for our built-in die roller, you can open chat, and that will open the chat. And then you've got our die roller, which is it's Dice Maiden. You just type roll 1d20, and boom, there, a 1, an auspicious start. Yes.
Right.
So that's it. That is literally all you have to do to register, to join in. And Stephen, if you want to share a map in here and use the screen share feature of the Discord, you can. It's super easy to do. I've had some game masters say, "Hey, I don't want to, I don't want to use the dice bot. Can I just point a camera at my table?" And absolutely,
Okay.
Absolutely. However you want to do it, that's entirely up to you. So that's it. You are registered at the con. You are now a registered game master at the con. I'm going to finalize those slots for our panels. We're going to have Eric Garland and Heidi Gygax Garland, old coworker of yours, Richard Witters.
Yeah.
Richard's going to be paneling. We've got author Alyssa Hazel, which Alyssa is, of course, it occurs to me my screen is postage stamp size. It won't help me to show you her books right now. But Alyssa, fantastic speculative fiction author, horror, science fiction. Her duology, hopefully trilogy of The Third Test and The Second Initiative. Guys, fantastic science fiction books. I do recommend. And speaking of good authors, great authors, we've got Sky Hernstrom. Man, if you like pulp, fantasy, post-apocalypse, fantasy, stuff in the vein of Howard and Clark Ashton Smith, absolutely you've got to check out Sky Hernstrom. He's going to be doing a talk. I don't know if Sky's going to be running a game. He said he might run some Red Box, but we'll have to see how that works out. Tracy Lesh is going to be doing Artist Alley again this year. I'm excited about that. So Tracy's going to be here, and he's going to do a panel. And now we have Steven is going to be doing it again. Secret stuff is happening. You guys will find out the closer we get to GUOC. So, and if you guys aren't careful, I might give away a copy or two of Crom at GUOC. Do you, Steven, do you like Crom with your GUOC periodically?
I think like Crom with my GUOC.
There you go. So we'll be. I may give away a copy of. Crom. You wish Richard would run some Rudigers. I think he is game to it, but I'm not gonna hold his feet to the fire on that, because I know he's got a lot of stuff jumping, and it may be just enough to be able to pry Richard down for a panel, and of course that would make me a Richard Pryor. A Richard Pryor. Oh, what do you people know from Funny? Anyway, so that's all happening in just 2 weeks.
A pocket.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He who would pun will pick a pocket.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really excited about the GUOC, guys, and I hope you'll be there. And not to be overly let's see, overly grabby, but guys, we have merch. Dungeon Minister will have this link up. I will get this out, because I know, like, getting con merch after the con, what fun is that? But let me share with you our merch logo this year. I was quite happy to be able to learn how to use the swirly tool in a little free Photoshop like program, and bring you guys the GUOC 6 2026 in the style of the Masters of Reality, the Black Sabbath Masters of Reality logo. So get that on a t-shirt and make Black Sabbath fans scratch their heads and wonder what the hell GUOC means. So
Black Sabbath, that's
absolutely. So that, again, you will be able to get that on a t-shirt, pint glass, mugs, mouse pads, whatever Dungeon Minister wants to upload that to, and I will have that link. I'm going to start spamming the hell out of that link everywhere, on the show, on the on the Discord, on social media, so you guys will be able to get that up. So I'm excited about this. I hope you're excited about it too. It's going to be the cheapest and easiest convention you will attend all year, Stephen. So
that is probably, well, that is very true. Although right now I don't really have any plans to, of course, I got the invite to go to GaryCon this year, but I couldn't make it happen between the move and everything else.
Right.
Which, and so they're all like, you need to go next year. And I'm like, no, I don't know I can't look into a crystal ball and see the future, but I definitely I love going to GaryCon. GaryCon and Gamehole Con are, two of my favorite shows. They're both kind of the same and very different. But Gamehole Con, that is one of the best organized events I think I've ever gone to.
Nice.
Like, everything runs like clockwork, which their staff is really friendly and really fantastic. And I've run and played fantastic games there, had fun with hanging out with crazy folks like Ed Greenwood. Always
Excellent.
Always a pleasure to
believe it or not, at EggCon this year, I'm rooming with Ed Greenwood and Alan Hammock. So that's gonna be a ton of fun. It's in one of the big suites in the Cove. So
nice. Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, both those guys are really good. Really fantastic folks to hang out with. And Ed's hilarious. And man, talk about stories. Ed has great stories.
Oh yeah. I can imagine, dude. So hopefully I can get those guys on camera. I'm taking the mobile studio with me up there. So maybe they'll be not busy enough that they'll sit down for a couple of minutes. Don Green, thank you for hanging out. Take it easy, my friend. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The last con I went to was Comic-Con. A friend of mine got me a pass and everything else, so I finally got to go see what Comic-Con's about, which it's in beautiful San Diego, right on the harbor, which is really nice. And I only went on Thursday. I didn't go for the crazy when it was totally packed. And I don't know if I would go on my own. If I was on panels or something, I might go. But for the most part, it's all like, okay, I experienced that. That was fun. I'm done. Too big.
My kids, for about 5 years running, we went to Tampa Bay Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, even the one in Tampa Bay, it is a lot. And for a guy like me, like I appreciate comics. I grew up reading Marvel comics and Star Wars comics, but I'm not what you would call a comics guy. I know a lot of lore. I love to read the stories of stories, if you will. But I've got 300 long boxes that are just Avengers comics. That ain't me. So for me, it was like, I wonder if there's any RPG stuff here. And at least at Tampa Bay, the answer was no. Right. The closest to a gaming scene, I think, was
somewhere, right? Usually,
yeah. I did have a very nice vendor offer to sell me a mint in box copy of the Intellivision Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Treasures of Tarman cartridge that he wanted a couple $100 for, but I had to pass on that one. I was like, yeah, I can play this with an emulator back home. I'm sorry. So but yeah, we did Comic-Con for a while, and then I think we stopped going in 2019. Yeah, we did from like 2014 to 2019, and then gosh, I can't remember what, but there was something that came up the next year that stopped us from going. And then it just we hadn't gone back, but I'm like you. If somebody lost their minds and said, "Hey, would you come and do a panel?" I would go, but yeah, I'm not going to just like pack up and go to to Comic Con?
No, I mean, yeah, I was invited there by a friend, wonderful guy in the game industry, and he throws basically an industry get together afterwards, and he's like, I can get you a badge, and I'm like, oh, that'd be nice, and of course the girls they love anytime we can go to San Diego's gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
San Diego's gorgeous. We've got friends there, great Mexican food. And so anytime, we can take a quick trip down to San Diego. I'm not an LA guy, but I'll go to San Diego. I'll go to LA. I've got some friends in LA who keep on. I mean, Luke GUOGC lives in the LA area too.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Although, it's all like, don't you want to go see Joshua Tree? You can come visit me out here. But
I do get that. People are like, hey, do you ever want to come so and so? I'm like, no, that's where it's cold. You come to Florida.
Well, I mean, we had last week, the summers here are 100 plus degrees, right?
Right.
Basically, you move from one air conditioning to another. But the winters here, for the most part, are like a summer in Washington State. Washington State summers are actually really nice. So it's nice having the windows open and everything else. But last week we had a couple of 100 degree days because of the heat wave that's going through just about the nation. So yeah, the ladies were all like, we're putting on the air conditioning. I'm like, okay. I'd much rather have the windows open, but yeah, I hear you. I get it.
Yeah, I was when I was in Philly. I was telling you I was up in Philly. Man, I just do not want cold weather. Can just stay gone, man. I don't even need that a little bit.
It's funny. The only gaming event. So the interesting thing about where I live is it's all connected by one highway, and you've got Yucca Valley, you've got Joshua Tree, and then you've got 29 Palms. And 29 Palms is where the Marine base is.
Right.
It's city around the Marine base. And so we've got one game store here in Yucca Valley called Critical Cupcake, which is run by folks who who worked at the GameStop. And when the GameStop shut down, they opened up this place. And it's young and plucky, and their magic and card game stuff is their bread and butter, right? They run really good events. And of course, in the 29 Palms, there's another place. The name's escaping me right now. There's a good amount of Tabletop Heroes, and they are far more into miniature games, but it's mostly all Warhammer 40K. And
yeah,
and my Warhammer days are long. I've got a Black Templar army, but my Warhammer days are really behind me. And so trying to find a good gaming group, just a bunch of friends, has been a little bit of a challenge. And I get so busy and sort of fixated on whatever project I'm working on. I'm probably not nearly as. I ran some play tests over at Critical Cupcake of a game I'm working on. I talked to the guy once in the 29 Palms in Tabletop Heroes. We had a very weird conversation where he was telling me the history of Wizards of the Coast, and I'm like, no. And he told me something about. He was like, well, this book by. And I said, yeah, James Lauder wrote that book. Jim's a good friend of mine. And he goes, well, it had magic references in it. And I'm like, I don't think so. That's an old TSR book. And he's like, no, I've got it. I've read it and everything else. And so I'm texting Jim as I'm talking to him. I'm like, does Prince of Lies have any Magic the Gathering references in it? And he goes, no, it came out the same year as Magic. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought, right? And so, yeah, And so the one weekend where somebody in Joshua Tree decided to put together it was a mix of a gaming convention and a techno music festival. And I'm like, okay. But
Okay.
unfortunately, Beth had put together a trip to go down to San Diego that weekend. And so I missed it. So the one gaming convention event that's happened here, I've missed.
So, well, I mean, someday, right? And hey, you can, you know, you can always just have a virtual convention.
No, yeah, that's true. I mean, I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, the real terrible thing is this place we have here. Like you're seeing about half of my office. Well, not even half. The rest of it is a great big old game table with, miniature cases and everything else. Like I've got a fantastic setup to actually play and run games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is the first time in quite frankly over a decade where I've had, the ability and the space to do that. And I just haven't met enough people yet.
Yeah, I have the opposite people problem. I did know a lot of people, and I do have the space to play. My little studio end of the table notwithstanding, but nobody wants to play anymore. So, it is what it's at. I have an 11-person Monday night first edition AD&D game that's been going for 20 plus years. I can't shake my fist at the sky too much.
Right.
Yeah. I've this game, Stephen, has introduced me to so many interesting people that honestly, and I mentioned a little bit of this last night. I mean, when I was a 10-year-old kid and I had a copy of Keep on the Borderlands in my hand, the only gaming book I had, I might mention. And I saw that Gary Gygax's name on the cover there. And I thought, how cool would it be to have one of these things in my name? And then here's, at the time, 32-year-old me having a phone conversation with Gary that would lead to me working with him. And not even the Gary Gygax, but everybody else that I met, all the other cool people that I met, yourself, so many other guests I've had on the show, people that have just like dropped into live chat and said, oh, good morning from Japan. Or, good morning from Taiwan. And I'm like, oh, hello. I didn't realize I had that much reach. But, it's all because of this fantastic, let's be pretend elf on graph paper for 2 hours on a Saturday.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, I moved around a lot as a kid. My father was a federal law enforcement officer. So we ended up, I was born in Washington, D.C. I lived in Maryland for most of my life. We moved to San Francisco. That's where I learned to play Dungeons and Dragons. Then moved to New York. Then I ended up moving to Colorado Springs for a little bit, back to New York, and then strangely enough, back down to the same county in Maryland that I went to elementary school in. And then I moved to, Santa Fe. I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for a while. I lived in Denver for a bit. I went to a college in Colorado, and then I moved to the Seattle area after college. Everywhere I went, this game gave me a group of nearly instant friends. It's just, you pull out a book or you say something that's not in the typical jargon. I remember I was a Boy Scout. I went to Boy Scout camp at 10 Mile River up in upstate New York. And I was working on like the nature merit badge, and we had to go out and did we see this? And did we see this? And did we see this? And we had this check sheet. And if I didn't see it, I just put nil. And the guy, the counselor running the class goes, Stephen, come here. And he goes, do you play Dungeons and Dragons by any chance? And I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I've never seen, he goes, the only people who put nil are people who play. I'm like, yeah, okay, fair. Yeah, it was a way, almost an instant way to find your people, make a group of friends. Yeah, every once in a while there'd be a jerk, but very rarely. And instant social group. Almost anywhere you went, the geeks would amass, and we'd make up elf stories. But yeah, the game is absolutely fantastic for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that, like, like, literally there's no timeline I can imagine where this is not something I would have done, just for just for, not for nothing. It is such a, and you touched on a good point here, because you said, it's the language of it. And I mean, there's people who you hear them talking. I was watching a guy play Doom on YouTube, and he was talking about the programming in Doom.
Yeah.
And he kept referring to hit points and armor class. And it was a live stream, and finally I was like, dude, do you play tabletop? And he was like, no, I don't, but that's just what you say, that, that's just the language of it. And it's created a new language, and it's created a new way of speaking. But even at that, there was that moment of connection with the guy about here's a dude talking about the programming language of Doom and how the game unfolds, and he drops hit points and armor class, and it just creates this immediate moment of connection. Although Ramiro did play, you've read Masters of Doom, right?
In fact, I've got a copy at my desk.
Yeah. And I think in the dark from a distance, somebody could mistake you for John Romero.
But I taught game design classes in the past. And one of my favorite sort of lessons is, especially with younger people, is I'm like, okay, so next week we are going to take a look at the design of the original Dungeons and Dragons game. And these kids get scared. They're like, oh shit. Right. And what's really funny is, I'll bring my, my 3 little books. I'll outline the game as it's presented in those books. And at the end of my explanation, just look of shock of these kids. And they go, that's it? And I go, here's the thing about it, guys. You live in the wake of this thing's passage. All of, like, there's a they were like, I thought you had to be a genius to play this game. These are basic concepts. I said, they're basic now. But when they came out, they were revolutionary. You guys live in games that use these mechanics and these concepts. They're second nature to you. But it was confusing as hell to anybody who wouldn't take the time to sort of understand and delve in. And I'm like, and you can go back to Dragon magazines and even earlier publications. There were knockdown, drag out fights about what hit points were supposed to represent. You guys don't have that. Everybody just goes, oh, they're hit points. They do this. You take damage, hit points go down. Mm-hmm. When you hit 0, something happens. Depends on the system. And I'm like, but back then, there were knockdown, drag-out fights in Dragon magazines. What are these points supposed to represent? You guys just go, they're hit points. Everybody knows what hit points are.
Dude, there were 2 groups. It was like a gang turf war at MIT in the early 1970s over one set of D&D house rules versus another set of D&D house rules.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just MIT. There were small, just about, my mom at one point decided to go back to school and get her graduate degree. And she was taking night classes, and she had me along, and she dumped me in the library because I had just really started taking D&D pretty seriously. And of course, you read the early Dungeon Master's Guide and you're a kid, you're like, what the hell is this word? And you go to your dictionary, it doesn't have it. And so I would go find the Oxford English Dictionary in there, figure out what Gary was saying with these words that I didn't know. And she knew she could just keep me in the library, and I'd be drawing maps or doing whatever. And by the time it was done, and I remember there were gaming groups in that library where this one guy had this briefcase where he came out and he had like all of the early two-tone adventures, 3-ring bound and organized, and he had like a map of where they were on his campaign world. And I was just like, oh, and they were arguing about their house rules and everything else. So yeah, it happened in MIT. I think it was in Colorado Springs was this college. And so, and the every weekend, the main library in town, they opened up one room in the library, and it'd be filled with people playing D&D. We talked today, which every time Wizards of the Coast brings up a number about how many people are play D&D, I sort of laugh up my sleeve, right? Because I think those numbers are garbage.
Although I do have a theory on that, but you go on first.
That's not to say that D&D didn't have some of the best years it's ever had and everything else. I just don't. I think those numbers are off, and partially because I know because a variation of those numbers were bandied about at Wizards of the Coast, and I argued about them back then. D&D has been doing great. It's having a little bit of trouble right now, but some of us are trying to do things to at least help fix that. Mm-hmm. D&D has popped up quite a few times as a real cultural phenomenon, and it's the way it was in the 80s, especially in college campuses, and at geeks in junior high school and high school and everything else. Its resurgence in 2000 with the release of 3rd edition. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Sure.
And of course with 5th edition. And
I noticed you mentioned 3rd and then jumped straight to 5th, but we'll just go on.
Hey, we can talk about 4th edition because I worked on that game. I worked hard on that game. I am very proud of that game. But yeah, I understand. Most people still talk shit about 4th edition, but I will run you a very fun 4th edition game.
I believe it. And I'm going to say this, and you may get mad at me and you may tell me, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not seeing the big picture, yada, yada. I think they could have saved themselves a shit ton of heart. Hey, if they had said, we're releasing a new game, it's called Dungeons and Dragons Tactics.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Done everything else exactly the same.
The funny thing about it is I sort of laugh at, I think the presentation and some of the presentation, the way it was put in the books, and then some of, definitely the marketing was awful.
Somebody.
People were like, who decided to do this? The game, it remains the same. And it's all like, who the fuck did this?
I've got an idea. Let's insult everybody who played D&D back in the 70s.
Right. Now I'm a monster. Right. I mean, and the real thing, the tipping point And God, all through the development of 4th edition, I fought against this and had meetings, and then somebody would come in and go, no, is the real tipping point is when Jason Bowman from Paizo went to go to a convention to play it and came out and said, you now have to roll to hit for Magic Missile. What the fuck's that all about? Which was true in the original, not the Essentials version, but they kept on putting an attack roll on Magic Missile. And I was all like, why? Just have it do damage. Just point damage. This is Magic Missile. This is, it's fine. And they're like, well, no other class has this, Steve. And I'm like, the fighter gets it at 5th level. What? And I'm like, the fighter, if they miss an attack, they still do damage. That's Magic Missile. So you gave Magic Missile to the fighter at 5th, but not the wizard at 1st. Why? And they go, yep, you're right. And I'm like, won that. And then I'd leave and I'd see a next version of the draft and somebody would change it back. And I'm like, God damn it.
And the weird thing is Magic Missile required a 2-hit roll in original D&D, or not.
Oh yeah.
But they changed that. That was dropped. That was the only place it stuck around was in an incredibly niche place. If a fighter uses a wand of magic missiles in 1st edition AD&D, they have to roll to hit. The magic user using the wand of magic missiles does not, and he gets more magic missiles out of it. The fighter has to roll to hit with a wand of magic missiles. I believe, if somebody wants to check me out on that, if you want to grab your Dungeon Master's Guide, anybody out there in audience land, but I believe that's the case.
I have the Player's Handbook 1st edition here, but not on.
But the fact is you're right. I mean, continually changing that back in. I mean, that's just there were. I mean, and again, but this is D&D in a nutshell, and it's a Wizard of the Coast problem. And when the OGL thing happened and whatnot, I was like, did people forget? We've seen this before. So 3rd edition D&D comes out, Player's Handbook comes out. You have this glitchy program character builder that you can't upgrade in any way at that period of time because that's the way it worked. And of course, there were brand people who were like, and we're going to make all of these digital tools. And it's all like, yeah, but Wizards really doesn't know how to do that. This is all like, oh, AI will work, right? I mean, it's it's basically marketers spearheading programming, which no. And then so 4th edition did the same thing. We're going to have all of these digital tools. And I was the R&D guy who interfaced with the digital tool people. And I was like, this doesn't look great, guys. And they're like, oh, the final product will look awesome, and I'm like, and they were very forward thinking. We were talking about 3D printing, and they were showing me samples of 3D printing when you were basically doing 3D printing with sugar. Yeah.
And they're talking about eventually you'll have this character builder where you can make your character and then we'll print out a miniature. And that eventually did happen, but not till years later, right? So yeah, there was all of this crazy stuff. And then of course, what is it? What was Project Vorpal? What did they call that thing?
I don't.
Virtual table, the virtual tabletop.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, and I can't. It's gone that quickly out of my head.
I'm like, that's too complicated. That's not what people want. And then, strangely enough, because the pandemic siloed everything, another group at Wizards of the Coast produced a much better virtual tabletop that had just the amount of tools that people needed to play, and you didn't have to have the most expensive computer on the planet. The two groups didn't know about each other. And that virtual tabletop that they've got on the Wizard site works really, really well. And they've been updating it and everything else. And of course, the very fancy one that used Unreal Engine or whatever to try to make D&D look like a video game. Yeah, they got thrown out. Too expensive. Nobody wanted to use it. It wasn't what people wanted. So, Wizards of the Coast over time has always been forward thinking, but they've made promises time and time again. When I was there, after I was there, I remember they were like, "We're going to make a virtual tabletop." I'm like, and I was an early adopter of virtual tabletops, and I was like, "Why don't you just license one of the 3 pretty good ones that are out there right now?"
Yeah,
Either has license it, and
Hasbro,
like,
go write a $20 million check to Roll20. Boom, done.
Right. And this was back in Fantasy Ground days, before Roll20 was there. And then I remember when I was at Paizo, they're like, "We're going to build a virtual tabletop." I'm like, "No, you're not." And it's like, "No, we're going to tell people we're going to build a virtual tabletop." I'm like, "These things are a lot harder than you think." And yeah, it turned out like I saw the very early virtual tabletop from Paizo, and I'm like, "Really?" Like, just work with partners that are already there, and or buy one, or like there are people who have done the work already. Utilize them.
Yeah. And dude, I'm going to tell you, just from a trigger man point of view, I mean, I've only just peeked behind the curtain on the business standpoint of stuff, but I have done a fair bit of IT work. I say this with love in my heart. I say this with affection and understanding. Everyone responsible for any UI, for any virtual tabletop, needs to be dragged out and shot. Amen. There is no virtual tabletop that has a UI that is worth a damn. They are all bad. Every single one of them has, it's like somebody went to UI design classes and then said, "Everything you just said to me, I'm going to do the exact opposite when I get home and work on my VTT."
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely have a little bit more patience when it comes to UI. Like, I think Roll20's UI is just fine. Does it get overly complicated very quickly? Yeah. But at the same time, you can run a very basic game with a very simple map. Owlbear Rodeo is at least the last time I looked at it, which it's been a while, was, this is really dirt simple. Even if you want to, and I tend to like the tactical aspect of a lot of tabletop role-playing games. I like playing with miniatures. I like playing on a grid. I like, this kind of stuff. I can run Theater of the Mind. I think Theater of the Mind's fine, but I like all my tools and toys.
Yeah, same.
And I like a virtual tabletop that gives me the options for those tools and toys. But for most people, they're not necessary. And in a lot of ways, if I were, and I've done consulting work on virtual tabletops and stuff like that, it's all make it dirt simple with basically a secondary interface where you can really go in and do all the stuff. But unfortunately, developers, they get very excited about, now you can animate things, and so we're going to put it in the main bar. And it's like, yeah, most people don't need that. They just need to, one, talk to your friends, show them what they see, move around some miniatures. That's it. If you can just give them that, right? And then put the bells and whistles in sub menus and, in sub interfaces and everything else, where, yeah, you can do crazy stuff. But, and especially if, God, I've run Delve quite a bit on virtual tabletops, and it's all like, not only am I teaching somebody a new game system, a similar, like a game system they're going to grok pretty quickly because it's very similar to just about every other game they've played, except for when it's not, of course. And then, and I've got to teach them all of the interfaces for a virtual tabletop on top of it.
Yeah. And I, I get feature creep. I absolutely get feature creep, and I get, you know what? No, I've got to dig my heels in. And I, like, when I was writing Crom, I had a lot of people, very well-intentioned people. I am not slamming anybody who asked for features for Crom. I get it. But so many people were like, "Or are you going to make it so I can put in custom spells?"
Right, right.
Or are you going to make it so like you could have a little JPEG of your character on the screen? Are you going to make it
hand job? No, it's not. It's just a virtual tabletop.
Yeah. And it's just like you have to wake up one morning and pull out the chalk plumb and snap a line and say, we're not crossing that.
Yeah.
That is permanent. We're not building past that, because if you chase just one more feature, you will never stop. And the more features you add, the more bugs you enter. When I was building Crom, one of the last things that I built in was when I added the ability to bard in Crom, it broke percentile strength. And I gutted that code. I went through it left, right, and center, looking to see how in the hell, because it wasn't like, well, bards can't have percentile strength, that's what broke. No, it broke the percentile strength function.
Well, I mean, it's one of the things that I've sat down with a lot of partners and a lot of companies that are all like, we want to do D&D on the computer. And I'm like, here's the thing about D&D, and it gets worse the farther you go back, but it's worse in every edition, is it's not. So there's this thing, basically all over corporate America, they call it localization. And localization has a lot to do primarily with, here's a product, we're going to open it up in a new market, in a different language, in a different culture. What changes are we going to have to make, or how can we design this thing to make the fewest amount of changes, which is interesting and difficult. But real localization these days, as far as tabletop games go, is how can we make designs that are going to be not easier, but more elegant to program. Because first edition AD&D, not that game. It goes off in all sorts of tangents, right? Because Gary was solving problems that popped up. And the human brain is buggy, but not nearly as buggy as a logical system. Just the fact that Crom works as well as it does, that's great. That's fantastic.
That's like,
do you know how many people tried in the past to do that? A lot, and they didn't quite get it done.
The closest that there is, and I tell this as a selling point. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I will sell you Crom if you give me 5 minutes, but you're my guest, so I'm not going to do that to you. But the closest that they got, that TSR, with TSR money and SSI brains, the closest that they got was the Dungeon Master's Assistant Volume 2.
Yep.
And as good as it is, and it is the closest thing to Crom that you can get, it's nowhere near what Crom does.
No. And it's weird and funky and all sorts of
But with that said, people who ask me, will you ever open up Crom source code for, it's not about keeping it to my chest and going Gollum. No, it's mine. I don't want people to see the source code because I'm embarrassed of it. I have got chain pulleys running from the top of the code all the way down to the bottom to keep stuff working properly.
I program this stuff nowadays. Wouldn't that just work?
Yeah. But
weird times.
Yeah, and That's another funny one is I've had people who are clearly not going to be my customers for it, so I don't feel bad about saying this. You've probably encountered this in TTRPG fields, is because, well, I can just throw this in ChatGPT and just have ChatGPT make me an AD&D character. I could do all this in there. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, before that, I mean, it was really funny. Is before that, you know, and before I worked at Wizards, I worked in digital publishing. You know, you'd always get the guy in the room who's like, "Well, I could program that in my sleep," and I'm like, "Really?" Because it took these 5 guys about 6 months to do it. Like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I remember I was at a gaming convention in the '90s, and I was talking about. You know, I know how to use Macs and I know how to use PCs. My preference is a PC, but I'm fine working on Macs. But he was telling me, well, you can't do page layout on a PC. And I'm like, no, you can. Most PCs aren't built for it. You need a lot more RAM. You need a better graphics card. You need this and this and this. And you know, it's a bit clunkier when it comes to print drivers and everything else. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You need a Mac to do digital publishing. And I'm like, you do not. You just need to know what the hell you're doing. Somebody wants to, and Macs make it easier for you. Don't get me wrong, especially in that time period. But there's nothing magical about a Macintosh that says you can only do desktop publishing on a Macintosh and digital publishing on a Macintosh. I said, they just made it easier for you because that's what they built. That's one of the things they built that computer for.
Yeah.
PCs are a lot more modular and they're usually not built for that. But yeah, I do all sorts of digital publishing on PC. Always have. It's just got to be the right PC, which you know, with Macs, especially in that period of time, you got whatever Mac, you know, Apple wanted to sell you.
Yeah. You should just, I think the point of what we're coming to here is that you should just add one more feature is the road to madness, whether it's in tabletop RPGs or whether it's in computer code, because where does it stop? You know,
I've made, especially in tabletop RPGs, I've made a pretty good living over the years of all right, we need to do this thing. None of us know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take a shot at it. It's like, well, we want to do a gunslinger class for Pathfinder. How do we do this? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. You know, and so in a lot of ways, right, I mean, you of course are looking at the stability of the system that you've created. And you've worked very hard for it and everything else. I'm definitely one of those designers that go, yeah, we can fuck shit up a little bit.
and that is one of the beauties of pen and paper and tabletop, is that you do have the, like, you know, particularly now, I'm the problem that you run into, of course, is Chesterton's wall when you start pulling stuff out of a tabletop game. But by and large, like, I want D&D, but with ray guns. Cool. You can buy a copy of Gamma World, or you can buy a copy of S3 Expedition of the Barrier Peaks. You're set. That's it. Right. There you go. There's your sci-fi supplement for AD&D, and the Dungeon Master's Guide will even tell you how to incorporate it. And you want firearms in AD&D? Same thing. There's a whole section in AD&D on firearms. And you have that beautiful latitude, whether you're designing or whether you're just somebody who wants to tinker at your tabletop with stuff like that. I did this, it didn't work, I'll put it back, versus I did this, why did all my code stop working? You know, it's like,
yeah, going on the firearm stuff is in Pathfinder. One of the things I learned very quickly, and if I had to redesign it, I would redesign the misfire rules, because it was predicated on the idea that players were going to be honest, and they are often not when it's a negative. They'll be really honest when it's positive, but when it's a negative, they will not. And understandably so. I mean, that's not a real judgment. That's just human psychology. The other thing is, I did it in I designed it in such a way that guns were slower, not as slow as they are historically. I'm like, it's a fantasy game. You're playing a gunslinger. Yeah, we're going to take some concessions. And I looked at everything and I'm like, this is going to work. The one thing that I didn't look at was this small little publication that came out 3 years ago that Sean Reynolds wrote, where he created weapons cords that allowed you to drop and pick up weapons very quickly. And of course, the players found that, and they were, I mean, it's ridiculous looking, but they were weapon cording their pistols back and forth and firing multiple shots. And I'm just like, God damn it, the one little thing I didn't look at. And of course, they're going to pick up on it, and they're going to do crazy things with it.
Dude, that goes, but I mean, that goes all the way back. Do you know why weapons damage is variable in D&D at all? Do you know why it is?
I know originally it wasn't. Everything just did a D6.
Everything did a D6. Gary changed it up because players, instead of, I'm going to buy a two-handed sword, I'm going to buy a glaive, I'm going to buy I'm going to buy a mace, they would just buy iron spikes.
Yeah.
They would just buy an iron spike is virtually free.
Right.
And I can stab a monster with it as well as I can hit it with a greatsword. And Gary was like, now that weapons cording.
Right. I mean, because, that's the great, well, that's the great thing about players, and the awful, terrible thing about players too, is they will find the exploit, right? And, the more I go on with game design, the more I figure out, and the more I actually design for this, is I put exploits actually in the system that seem sneaky. And then when people find them, they're like, look how smart I am. But I put it in there and the system's still balanced for it. It's also a trick in some ways I play with editors, right? Sometimes editors, of course, have ideas that I may or may not agree or disagree with, but they're very passionate about those issues. Mm. And so many times in my career, an editor's come to me. I remember one of the funniest is working on the Gunslinger. I called one of the feats or a class ability the shootist. Mm-hmm. And they're like, Stephen, shootist isn't a word. And I said, actually, it is. And they're like, it's a movie title, but it's not really a word. I said, that's what they actually called gunslingers back in the day. They called them shooters. We called them gunslingers, but it is a word. And blah, 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 blah. This poor guy, great guy. I heard him because the development pit was over here and the editing pit was over there. He went over and goes, what did he say? He gave me a history lesson. Right. So, but I would put things in my text that I knew would piss off the editors, and then they would go ahead and change it. Two pages in the thing that would mildly piss them off, but I wanted to keep. And so, because I knew they'd be so focused on being mad at that's Stephen A. Put this fucking thing in here. By the time they got to the thing I found really important, they were already dizzy on the Stephen's a Neanderthal and doesn't understand why you can't use this word. And
I love it, man.
But yeah, I mean, players will find exploits, and even to every designer or programmer or whatever's best intention. That's why we have hackers, right? Somebody's going to find the exploit.
Yep.
So put in little traps. It'll at least slow them down. It's not going to stop them.
What was it? There was an article. And surprisingly enough, it was not in Steve Jackson Games Murphy's rules. And this is like something that would have been ideal to put in there. But the article was titled a Feather Me Yon Elder Thing. And you know how surprise works in AD&D, right?
It's been a while.
Okay, so surprise in AD&D segments, like if you look at weapon speed and spell casting, and then you have to divide movement by 10. So surprise did not necessarily equal instant death for the surprised party, even if it's total surprise of 3 segments, except missile fire for purposes of surprise, rate of fire is taken in rounds. If you have 3 rounds of total surprise, that's 6 arrows you can ripple off at a foe, and potentially, like, you take a hill giant, average 32 hit points. You have 3 archers, you have total surprise on the hill giant. He just gets machine gunned down.
Yeah.
And so Feather Me on Elder Thing took the total surprise mechanic, the weapons specialization and double specialization rules from Unearthed Arcana, and the strength bow rules, and basically said, if you had a ranger with an 18 double nut strength,
yep,
who was double specialized in bows and had total surprise, he could potentially be doing like a maximum of 732 points of damage in the surprise function.
Well, I mean, you know, there's whole TikTok and Instagram videos on, you know, somebody figuring out the craziest spell combo or spell and feature combo in 5th edition as well. Like, you're never going, in some ways, you're never going to stop that. Either that or so one of the things, you know, and I understand why people didn't like the structure, and it's one of the things that I keep on reading about 4th edition D&D, is the underlying architecture and mathematics of that game is so tight. You actually had fewer of those things, especially in the most playable level band, which was 1 to 10, right? Like, and so it was a real, in some ways, even with the amount of material we're putting out, it's a pretty airtight system. And it was an open airtight system. So there's airtight systems and there's open airtight systems. And I'll give a brief explanation. Is take the crafting rules from 3rd edition, like just the mundane crafting stuff. If you take a look at those rules and you really start to apply them and you start to do it, you realize pretty quickly, and I remember asking Jonathan Tweet about this too, is the answer, the solution to the problem is we've given you a system, but it's so obscure and not to your benefit, don't even fucking try it. And there's a lot, and you know, you could make the same arguments for 2nd edition D&Ds and even 1st edition D&Ds, non-weapon fighting rules and stuff like that. There is a bad tendency by a lot of designers that go, people want this system. I don't want them to take advantage of it. I don't know how to stop them from doing it. So I'm just going to make the system so bad that they go, yeah, let's not do that. The grappling rules are a great example of that, right?
Yeah,
I don't like those rules. And there were fewer of them in 4th edition. But yeah, I hate it when I come across a rule system where it's the designer did something, but he's really just telling you, don't bother.
Yeah. No, I dislike that kind of thing as well, where it's like we're gonna put this in here, but we're not really gonna put that in there. And that's not, you know, that's not.
PF2 is a reskin of 4E. It is not, and I will tell you that because I was the senior designer for P2. P2 is so one of the games I'm going to be running at GUOGC is going to be my system Delve. There, and for those of you who play it, who will know your stuff, you'll be all like, oh, this is kind of similar to P2, because I've been working on Delve for about 8 years now. There's a lot in P2 that's Delve. There's a lot of it that's not. But it was really kind of funny because as we were working on it, Jason Bowman, the same guy who complained that Magic Missile was an automatic hit in 4th edition, played one game. He didn't actually read the rules. And so as we were talking about issues in Pathfinder 2nd edition, Pathfinder 1st edition, and things we wanted to fix in Pathfinder 2nd edition, he kept on coming up with solutions that are exactly what we did in 4th edition. Because it's still 3.5 system. The problems as designers we knew were still there. Some of the solutions to those problems are very similar to what we did in 4th edition. And so that's why you're kind of, some people will sit there and say it's a reskin of 4th edition. It is not. It has a lot of my design in it. I wrote a blog many years ago called Buckets of Feats, the fact that features and feats and whatever you call them are all just rules objects that sit in different buckets. And you need to look at the design like that. So it's got a lot of my sort of game philosophy and everything else. That might be more of the thread you're seeing. And so, I'll just be honest with you. If you don't like that kind of thread in game design, you might not like my new game.
I'm going to say this about Pathfinder, and I played. This has been going on probably 6 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. I played. A friend invited me to a brief Pathfinder game. He's like, "Hey, we're gonna run like a 6 or 7 week Pathfinder game, and do you want to on Discord? Do you want to give it a shot?" And because I'm eternal DM, I'm forever DM. And I was like, "All right, tell me about Pathfinder." And he was like, "Well, it's a really high level game, and I just want you to feel comfortable running whatever you want within these parameters." And I sat down and I looked at what he was doing. I said, "Okay, I want to run a bard. I want to run a high level Pathfinder bard. Is that okay?" And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't looking to screw him. I wasn't looking to like, I'm going to come in your Pathfinder game and poop all over it. Ha ha ha. Right. That ain't my MO. So I pitched my character concept to him, and I ran Robert Plant. What if Robert Plant was a magic using time and space traveling bard? And let's be honest, we don't know that he isn't.
Right.
I let
you Mark Boland, but yeah, similar.
Same energy. And it was stupid fun. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I sang a wall down. I sang a wall down. And it was just ridiculous fun. And the ultimate lesson is, if you can get your head out of mechanics and additions and that sort of thing, and game with some people you're having fun with, back me up here, you're playing D&D right.
Oh yeah. Well, you're playing. Like the great thing about especially tabletop role-playing games and similar sort of games is how did a friend, he goes, yeah, basically we're just making fun of each other's imaginary friends. Like, yeah. That's the fun, and the real thing is you're building stories together. And yeah, you've all agreed on using the system, and you abide by the rules of that system with, of course, the caveat that the GM can come and intrude on that system just about at any time, fairly, hopefully. Here's my cat. And whatnot. So yeah, you've all agreed to a certain set of rules. Even if you're just like, oh, this isn't my favorite set, but I like all these people. And that's where the fun really is at. So you get, dorks like me who sit there and stress about the underlying architecture and design of these things to make sure that I can create a tool set vibrant enough for people to want to grab it and tell their stories, and I get stupidly intense and dorky about that. But once I put that out in there, it's really up to a group of friends to use those tools to have a good time. And I have no control over that at all. But, luckily a group of friends will always find a way to have a great time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think it was summed up best in an episode of the Venture Brothers when they flashed back to college and Dr. Venture yelled at a guy, wait. You're getting mad at me because I am having pretend sex with your not girlfriend on graph paper.
Right.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to, boys and girls. So, we are at the 2-hour mark. You are welcome to hang out as long as you want, but I've watched the sun go down out your window.
So here.
So if you're,
she's all like, "When is this ending, Dad? When do I get the
Well, I certainly don't want to stand between you and Ghost. So, now you are you're doing a panel at GUOGC,
yep.
the secret panel. You guys will have to tune in. I will tell you folks what the panel's.
It's Stupid Shit Steven Says.
Stupid Shit Steven Says. It's absolutely going to be Stupid Shit Steven Says at the GUOGC panel. But I think I've talked you into coming back not too much later after that or before that or some point. You're going to be back on the show again real soon, and we're going to have a much more focused discussion on a project you've got going on, correct?
Correct. And I'm going to see if I can bring some friends, right? Because this is definitely, I'm going to talk to them on Monday. I'm sure they'll be great. But for those of you who don't know, who have missed the news, and this is old news for me. So Luke Gygax is spearheading a Greyhawk book. I am a member of that team. I'm the lead designer for the adventure that's going to be in that book, along with a great cast of characters who are doing the cartography and the lore parts of that book and everything else. You know, Luke Gygax being one of them. Of course, he's our lead. But we've got and Meyer, who's doing the cartography, Les and Ewan, and now I'm forgetting. I was on his show last night talking about it. A great group of people who all of us got together about 2 years ago. We started this project, and it was just going to be something Luke did and put on Adventurers Guild, because Luke wanted to do Melf stories, and we all wanted to do Melf stories. And we wanted to go back to that original folio 1983 feel of Greyhawk that Luke definitely grew up with. The rest of us grew up, but he did it with his dad. And so, we've been planning this book for a long time, and it's gone through a couple of iterations. But this is going to be Wizards of the Coast it's going to be Luke Gygax Presents and Wizards of the Coast.
And this is CY 576, guys. Little spoiler, I'm not going to step on you again, but yes.
And so, it was going to be an Adventurers Guild thing. Wizards heard about it, was intrigued, started talking to Luke and our project manager, Andrew, started making wheels and deals. And the next thing I know, it's all like, oh, this is going to be a WotC book, which is like, well, I haven't worked on a WotC book for a while. This will be fun. And so I think so far, well, let's hope I like the adventure I'm writing, because if it's not, Jesus Christ. I think people are going to have a good time. We're going to have it's going to be 5.5 edition, but we're staying very true to the lore of that 83 box set. So, as I like to tell people, somebody called them the furry races. I don't know if I agree with that title, that's not going to be highlighted in the adventure. If you want to play those, be a player in the game, that's up to you and your GM.
No tieflings.
I guess I can say this, Dungeon Master.
Yes.
But we're keeping the tone very 80s Greyhawk, and we're going to have some rules if you want to make the 5.5 edition a little harder. a little more brutal. Um, some suggestions on how to do that. And it's going to be a lot of old school Greyhawk goodness.
Well, I'm excited about it, and I want to ask you about 1,001 questions, but I'm going to save them to the next to the next stream.
Yeah.
Because I want to spread the word far and wide to my fellow Greyhawk nerds, and have people ready to start bombarding you with those questions. But is there anything else? Would you like me to give you the talking stick one last time this evening?
No, other than if you want to follow me, I'm you can friend me on Facebook. It's got my full name. I try to keep up with people. Sometimes I get drunk and share music, and I do talk about politics. And just to warn you, I'm very much on the liberal side. So if that bothers you, either ignore those posts or just bear with it or not friend me. But I'm a big believer in treating everybody equitably, including people who disagree with me. And I'm working on this game that I'm hoping to do. Well, I've got to put it out this year. It's called Delve RPG. It's sort of my meditations on a D20 system. And that's at least one of the games I'm going to be running at GUOGC. So if you want to try out that system, look for Goblin Stomp. I'll probably run something else. Maybe I'll run a small part of the Melf Adventure. Who knows what edition?
Oh man. Oh man. You may have me canceling stuff if you do that at the wrong time, dude. Nobody's gaming at this time slot. This time slot's closed.
To give a spoiler, not really spoiler, there's this crazy place called the Spirit Cairn, and it gets a little rowdy.
Excellent. So Starblazer, he just said you can find him. You can find him over on Facebook at Stephen Radney McFarland. Just yep. Check him out over there.
I've got a Twitter. I'm barely over there.
I think we follow each other on Twitter, but it's rare we do communicate over there. It's usually via Facebook DMs, but it's all good. It's all good. All right, my brother. Thank you for coming by this evening. Thank you for hanging out. And we will see you.
I would talk to you
real soon for the next stream, and then we will see you at the GUOGC. What order those happen in, that will unfold as the weeks do. But for the rest of you plebs, I will be back tomorrow night. We will be playing Blade Runner on live stream. That's Blade Runner. We're 2049 now. We've moved up from 2019. Stephen, help yourself to some schnapps and pistachios in the green room.
All right.
I will slide you back there. But the rest of you guys, we will be back tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Be there. It's too bad we won't game, but then again, who does? No, that's a terrible use of a Blade Runner quote. It's too bad we will game, but then again, who does? No, that's not any better. Look, just come and hang out while we play some Blade Runner. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to our guest, Stephen Radney McFarland, for being here. Guys, I love you all. Please like, subscribe, spread the word, buy a copy of Crom for your first edition AD&D games, and do be nice to the owl bear on the way out. He's feeling a little ornery. Peace. Good night. Love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.